Hey there, hope you are doing well. We're back, and today I am going to be reviewing a eyeshadow palette. Now this is a company I actually really like, and I don't think it gets a lot of fanfare compared to other brands of eyeshadows out there, and that is Cargo. Yes, Cargo Cosmetics. And I just don't see that there's a lot of reviews necessarily for Cargo, and I'm actually a really big fan, and I have like about 5 palettes besides this. I really do like their products. They're easy to get here. I think they're situated in Canada, but the products are definitely here. I know you can pick them up off their website, or you can also pick them up at Kohl's, I think, here in the US. So there's no excuse not to own it. Oh, also at Ulta. They don't always carry everything, but they do tend to carry a large amount. So no excuse, you can pick up Cargo. They usually, from what I understand, run about $32 per palette. I'll say 32 to 40 depending, but I think maybe this one was 34. I think so. I think I picked this one up for 34, and I'll put the price to the side, but I did end up getting 20% off because they had a sale. Yeah, I know. It doesn't take much, does it? Not for me. So I ended up picking up a couple items of theirs, and this is the holiday collection. I know, it's September and holiday collections are on their way out, so bye-bye pocketbook. But so you can see it has the holiday motif on it. You know, it's green. And what I like about Cargo is that they're in these little boxes, almost like cargo boxes. It's about travel, so their palettes tend to be very world travel themed, and I love that because I'm actually really big into travel and different cultures, so I kind of love the themes that they come up with. And for their holiday palette for 2017, they came up with the theme of the Emerald City. Take a guess. Okay, time up. It's Seattle. And I actually really love that because I have a lot of family out on the West Coast, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Shout out to you. It is seriously, as my dad always says, he says it's God's country out there, and it really is quite beautiful. If you've never been there, it's beautiful. So here we go, opening this beauty up. So here is the palette. Yes, so looking at it, you already know that this is a very natural looking palette in that it's based off of nature. So you have the greens here, you have a lot of brownish golds, and then some very neutral kind of beigey brown colors, or you know, not even really beigey, just like neutral kind of brown colors, these 3 here, and even here, and then the golds here, this beautiful creamy kind of white color here, dark brown, and then here are the greens. So it's a very earthy, natural looking palette, which I kind of liked. And this is what I like about Cargo, is they step outside the box. Everybody else is putting out all these warm tone palettes, and Cargo's like, this. And what I love is that if you are a cool tone girl and you have a hard time finding palettes that work for your cool tone, I tend to find that Cargo actually puts out more palettes that are more neutral and cool tone. So if you're having a problem, Cargo is the company for you, because they really are turning out those palettes to help us cool tone girls out. So when I first opened this palette, I'm not gonna lie, the color looked a little bit different on their website. It looked very different. It looked a little bit more pinky and a little bit more varied because of the lighting that they used when they took a picture of the palette. But it really is a lot more natural in person. And when I opened it, I was a little confused because what I am doing is I tend to wear a palette for a week now so that I can see how it really wears, and I wear every single color because I'll still continue with the first impressions, but I think it's good to revisit these things so you see how the full palette works. And I did. I checked every single one of these. So I do find that the colors are very, very similar, and so what I'm going to do is do some swatches so that you can see that. You'll very much see that the finishes are different. There are some satins, there are a couple shimmers, and then quite a few mattes. So it's a nice mix, but even still, they are very similar. So here we go with the swatches. Okay, so I like to I like to turn my fingers around 3 times on these things, circle them, just to make sure I get enough, but not overdoing it. And so here we go. So you can see, you know, a lot of browns, very natural colors. Sorry, this is to wipe my fingers in between. So, you know, it's sticking with that theme. Makes sense if you've been out there. Very beautiful, but it's very natural. You're not going to see anything that isn't necessarily a color that's not nature in this palette. So on to the next 4. And there we go. Now this one, which is Space Needle, is a little bit hard to see on me, and I think it's more my skin tone than the actual color. But so that is the next grouping, and then we'll go on to the final because there are 12 colors in this palette. Just want to make sure it was wiped off my finger there. So the final 4, and these are going into the green shades. Whoops, want to make sure I'm hitting the right spot. Now I'm having a little bit of problem with Seaport. There we go. So that is the full collection. So a lot of browns, you can see the greens, you know, a lot of browns, see the greens down here at the bottom, but they're very, very similar. You know, especially like these two. It's very much in the same range. So it's not necessarily a huge varying type of palette. So if you're looking for a lot of different pops of color or looking for a lot of bold looks with different colors, this isn't necessarily the palette for you. You know, it really isn't. Even the greens, you know, they are definitely different. You know, this is definitely more of like an evergreen. This is more of a gray green. This is more of like a lighter gray green. But they're all pretty similar. But this is really great because you can really, I know a lot of people are, you know, sometimes afraid of bright colors, and I actually think that green is kind of the safe way to go, because to me, green is almost like a neutral. You know, it's not as whoa as blue. It's a little bit safer. So out of a lot of the colors in the color spectrum, I feel that green is one of the safer choices. So if you're starting to go into colorful eye looks, I always think that green, especially the darker ones, are kind of a safer bet. So don't be afraid of it. And I think it's really flattering for a lot of skin tones. Now, I did wear this 6 days in a row. I'm not wearing it today. I kind of got burnt out. Not that there's anything wrong with it. What's interesting is when I first tried using this for the first couple days, I was a little bit frustrated because I felt like I kept getting the same kind of looks over and over and over. And so trying to vary it was a little bit difficult at first. And you know what? I think I'll put some looks to the side. I actually took some photos of me wearing it, getting ready to leave in the morning and afternoon, so you can see it. So you'll see it's outside my hallway in my apartment building. Luckily nobody caught me doing it looking like a fool, taking pictures of myself like, you vain person. It's like, no, I'm doing it to inform people. It's for educational purposes, not vanity. But so I'll show some of those to the side. But I did find, even though, you know, it's a beautiful palette, but I did find that it was hard to create varying looks. And I didn't necessarily go with some of the more dramatic looks with the green, and the reason was because I had many things that I had to do throughout the day, and having a really bold eye look, sometimes at 7, 9, 10 in the morning, you know, just really wouldn't make sense. So you'll see that a lot of the looks are very tame. What I did like about this palette, though, for me, if somebody of my skin tone, is, you know, something like Fairy or even Seaport, you're going to be able to put these in the crease and just make a very light crease color with these two, and then put on a bold lip color. And that's what I was doing because it got really cold here for a couple days in New York City, so I did a very light eye look, put on the eyeliner, the mascara, and the bold lips, and I loved it. These two colors were perfect for that. What I will say is that there's not a lot of medium tones in this. It's basically really light, or you go really dark into this one, which is Coffee. And Coffee is obviously the darkest of the neutrals in there. But for somebody of my skin tone or darker, it, you know, slightly darker, it may be too much. So this would work really well on darker skin tones. The problem is if you're in the medium range, it may be difficult to find the perfect crease color because a lot of these browns are shimmers, and though, well, they're more satins, and though they're satins, I know some people, myself, I don't like to use satins in the crease as much. I will every once in a while, but I prefer not to. I know a lot of people don't. You can definitely do that with these colors, and if you're into that, thumbs up, because these work really well. But if you're not, you may find yourself a little bit frustrated because there weren't a lot of medium matte tones with this. But what I did find through experimentation was you can take coffee and mix it with Fairy or Seaport, and even actually Space Needle. You could do it with that and kind of mix these two together, and then I was able to create a darker crease color that wasn't as dark as coffee. So you definitely have options. You just have to be a little bit more creative with the mixing because it's not spelled out for you. What I love about this palette and what I love about Cargo in general is that for me it's really hard to keep an eye color going because, again, my skin is so oily, so that's the real test of how well these guys work, is with even with prepping my eye, a lot of the time shadows will go away quickly because of the oil. These don't. I freaking love Cargo because I never have an issue with them. I never do. Their shadows last forever, and this palette was not an exception. It was absolutely wonderful, and the lasting time was amazing. There was a little bit of fallout, not when you're using your brush so much, but when you're putting it onto your eye. I did find, especially with the satin types, that there definitely tend to be a little bit more fallout, especially with the greens, especially with this darker green, which I think is Fremont. So with Fremont, which is an area in Seattle, in case you're wondering, but I felt like it, when I was putting it on in the corner for a pop of green, it did fall under the eye, and boy, getting that off was a pain. So I was like trying to scrub it off, and the best way to do it, that's why I did my eye makeup afterwards. After the first day, I learned my lesson. I'm like, I don't do it that way again. So what I did, and this is kind of a hack that I use, is I won't put the makeup on first. I'll use my sunblock, because I'm so fair I have to wear it every day, and then I'll put it on afterwards and then wipe it off. So I'm basically putting the sunblock back on while wiping it off, and then I prep my eye or prep my face, and there we go. So it removed it, but just know if you don't remove it, it's going to leave like this muddled like green mess under your foundation, and no one wants that. I don't know, maybe you do, but you know, most don't. So yes, I also felt that even though they look very different in the swatches, these two, which are the two darkest here, this one, you know, really works well, and that is the Hill, which is an area in Seattle. So that one is very different, but these two, even though they look different in the palette, once you have them, even on the arm, yes, they are different colors, but they're very similar once you had it on the eye. Same thing with some of the browns, like this one, and yes, these two are very different, but these three, but they're very similar in look. So I felt when I was creating a look, it wasn't very varying because of the way it is. And at first I was frustrated and was like, I don't really like this palette, I'm going to be honest with you. But the more I worked with it, and this is why I'm trying to work with, you know, a palette between 5 and 9 days. The reason I do this is because as I was forced to use it more, I actually learned to like it more. I realized I liked certain looks that I had created, and I varied them a little bit, and I actually learned to like this palette. I really did. At first I was like, ooh, it's not my favorite. But then over time I was like, you really can create really great looks, but the thing is they're not going to be necessarily the most bold or exciting. You can, but you know, they're very much neutrals. So this may turn certain people off because Cargo's also really well known for putting some fun palettes out there with a lot of bright color. But I think you have to also look at the theme, and when you're thinking of Seattle, you're not thinking of these crazy colors. You know, it's not like that. This isn't like Hawaii, which has a lot of beautiful flowers and bright colors, or, you know, it's not like that. So it's not, Seattle's edgy in its own way, but it's not usually with colors. You know, it's not what you think of when you think of Seattle, these bright colors. So it actually is very true to the Pacific Northwest, but again, it is very much a neutral palette. But, you know, for the most part, they're really blendable. I did find, though, that for me at least, the greens were kind of the problem children of the palette. When you blend them, it was kind of the same problem that a lot of people were having with Subculture. I know, I'm not saying it's as bad, but with those greens, you could keep blending it and it would blend out for days. Now, it wasn't patchy, but sometimes when I was using, especially evergreen on an eye look, it would just change the whole look of everything else. It would almost overwhelm it, especially Northwest, and this is like an amazing color. This color, I love this color. This color is the saving grace of this palette to make it really interesting. Because it's so light and shimmery, it just makes the eye open and pop because of its coloring. It's just absolutely beautiful. But you can see it right there. You know, it is a little bit of a warm tone heading into neutral, but it worked for me and it just really varied the eye look. But sometimes with the greens, when I would use it, it would start to kind of go into that lighter kind of pinky cream color and change it into this green color that I didn't want. So the greens are extremely pigmented, but again, when you're blending them, they do tend to overtake the other colors around them. So what do I think of this palette? Well, what I will say is the brush, you do get a brush with it. It's not the best brush, but I wanted to show that. You know what it's really good for is putting underneath the eye and eyelining. It was really great for that, but anything else I was kind of like, wah, wah. But yeah, what do I think about the palette? I think it perfectly captures the Pacific Northwest. I do feel if you have a lot of neutrals, I don't know, unless you don't have a lot of greens, I don't know if this is going to be the best palette for you if you're trying to get away from the neutrals. Now, if you don't have a lot of neutrals and you want to experiment with pops of color, I always, like I said earlier, I think green's always kind of a safe choice, and these colors are no exception. You know, they're a very nice neutral kind of green and very safe. And I really think, though, that the colors complement each other well. With that being said, because you can see, even though they're green, they go with the browns and the grays really nicely. And these are kind of grayish kind of colors here, these two. So I think that this palette complements each other really well. The greens are a little bit difficult to work with, and they can be a little bit messy along with a few of the golds, but just prep your eye first and then put your foundation on and you are going to be fine. I think it's a nice cohesive palette. Is it my favorite of Cargo? No. Some of the colors definitely work better than others. These guys, which are great crease colors, do not show up necessarily as dark as I would like. You know, even this one, it looks darker here than it really is, and then it's still not that dark. So this may be frustrating for people with deeper skin tones, because I really do feel that this palette in many ways is a little bit more catered to those who have fair skin, you know, fair, medium, light to fair skin. These colors will work really well, but then you have all these other colors that won't necessarily maybe do enough, and it may be frustrating for some. Some pluses, if you're fair skinned like myself, these colors here are just beautiful for the crease, and especially for fall time, because then you can do the crease color with these light colors and then go for those bold colors on the lips. And it's nice to have a palette that works really well and isn't overwhelming on fair skin tones, because that happens a lot. Like, some things can be really overwhelming, but for you who have deeper skin tones, this may be a disappointment. So you may want to skip this one. I actually think, you know, because of the neutrals, and you know, a lot of people will be able to skip this one, but not because of any problems with the formula, not because of any of the problems with the formula, except for Fremont, which was kind of a beast. It was kind of a beast putting on. It was kind of messy. Beyond that, the rest of them went on pretty well. There is some fallout, but just be prepared to clean up and move on with your day. So that is my review. Giving some love to Cargo. I still give it a thumbs up. I love this company. Let me know if you have any of their palettes, what you think, because I really wish people would give it more of a try. It deserves more fanfare than it gets. I really think it does. So until next time, I want you to have a fabulous day, and see you later. Bye.